Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. In this two-part panel-style conversation, Jack Schonely and I bring you a unique conversation featuring a Canadian panel of public safety aviation experts. Together, they share their diverse backgrounds and experiences, shedding light on the vital roles they play within the public safety aviation community. Our discussion revolves around the importance of training and skill development, particularly for tactical flight officers, as they navigate the complexities of their responsibilities during critical incidents. We'll explore how technology is transforming the landscape of law enforcement aviation and discuss the collaborative efforts that enhance operational effectiveness across various aviation platforms. The panel addresses pressing topics, including the impact of the recent Portapique mass shooting, the vital role of ATAK in situational awareness, and the challenges posed by weather conditions in public safety operations. They'll also share the best practices for survival kits designed for extreme weather scenarios and the importance of ongoing education through diverse training environments. Join us as we dive deep into the challenges, experiences, and insights from our panelists, providing you with a comprehensive look at the growth and evolution of public safety aviation in Canada. Thank you to our sponsors, Shoutover, Robinson Helicopters, and Metro Aviation.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Join your host, Jon Gray, Jeff Ratkovich, and Jack Schonely.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
4 on the stop. You're in custody.
Good advising code 4 on the stop.
Hey, welcome to the Hangar Z podcast. I'm your host, Jon Gray. Have a really, really cool podcast in store for today. A conversation that we've never had a conversation quite like this before. We have, I'm going to call it the Canadian Panel Podcast. We've got an assortment of folks from various agencies from throughout Canada to join us to talk about a lot of different topics and also to promote some training that they've got upcoming, which I think will be of interest to anybody that's within traveling distance for this training event. So to get into this, first of all, I'm going to bypass the Hangar Z traditions, drink of the day and the hot seat. As fun as it might be, I know that all these folks have some really interesting points of view and some things to talk about. So I want to dedicate as much time as possible to that. Maybe we can start with some introductions. And Kyle, we'll start with you. And when you're done kind of introducing yourself, Kyle, can you talk about the training that you have upcoming and kind of preview that for people?
Yeah, absolutely. I won't go into too much depth just because chatted before. But the one thing I didn't talk much about last time is as a police officer, even considering I had a commercial aviation background, getting into the air sports side, honestly, I had zero interest for me. I started quarrying for canine, and I didn't think there was a challenge to being a TFO. It wasn't until I actually got up and saw the multitasking that goes into the job and the difficulties that come with it, not to mention the big effect you can have on a call, that I was really sold on coming up here. The one thing I didn't talk about much before is how I got my start in aviation, which was the Air Cadet program up here in Canada. So I joined that when I was 12 years old. It's funded by the government. I got my glider license and my private license on a scholarship. I was one of those kids where my folks didn't have a ton of money. So I think if I hadn't got those opportunities, I think I'd be where I am today in general. Not just on the aviation side, but as a 16-year-old earning a glider license, when you get wings pinned on your chest, you had to earn it. It didn't get handed to you. That was a game changer for me. And I taught in gliders and was an instructor for years while I was going to university. I always said I wasn't teaching kids glider licenses. I was teaching them that the most difficult things in life to achieve will be the most rewarding. So that's kind of how I got to where I am. I'm now a TFO and a fixed wing pilot for Calgary Police. Absolutely love the job. Like you said, I'll get into, we're looking at doing a safety stand to with APSA October 16th, 17th this year in Calgary. I think we look at how we get training going, and especially up in Canada, we're a very geographically wide country, but getting these training events are so important to get people together, to share ideas, bring ideas together. And even if you learn one thing, it is so vital to me to get people together. I'm happy that we got Chris and Wade and Curtis here, as well as we're going to have some other guys from other agencies that are contributing during those days coming up. So which I'm really excited about because we bring all those different perspectives. All these different the units that they're with are doing some really cool stuff. So we bring all those things together. We all sit down together as Canadians, North Americans. If you're from a U.S. agency, you want to come up, we want you to come. The Canadians, we got a reputation for being polite and friendly, and we promise we'll hold up to that. Say a lot and a boot, get you some maple syrup, and bring some beavers in or something. So, yeah.
You bring up something you talked about the training and having folks from anywhere in North America, really anywhere in the world. And one thing that we've noticed with the podcast, doesn't matter where you are, criminals are doing the same thing to get away from us. And we're employing the same tools to do that. So why not learn from each other? It doesn't matter where you are in the world. What matters is the fact that you're getting together with somebody, networking, creating those relationships that'll be beneficial down the road. So I love that you're doing that. APSA is big in that. We're big supporters of APSA for the resources they're providing these agencies with AppsCon. It's the one place that we can all go to every year to further those relationships and to get the training and education that helps us do our job. So on that, Kyle, can you talk about your role with APSA?
So I'm currently the Canadian Regional Director with Canada sitting on the board. So I started that just under a year ago now. Wade and Chris previously been on that role, and Chris is soon to be the new secretary. So when the opportunity came up, like it's been a lot of work, to be quite honest, but it's putting events together like this or being able to help out, know that you're helping bring training to people why it's putting in that work has been pretty easy to put it in for that. Because the idea of getting together in October and sitting down with all these guys and sharing a drink and sharing some training and tossing around some ideas, I've absolutely loved it. It's been a game changer for me. It's been my police aviation experience and training. And if we can provide that to some other people, I'm absolutely excited about it. I think it's invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about the after hours training that takes place. You talk about the bar, and we joke about going there, but man, I think more is learned in those settings than almost anywhere else, just through the conversations you have. And you ever hear someone that has a problem dealing with something, you're like, oh, we had that problem too. And just through the natural course of conversation, you come up with a solution that you didn't have before you went to the show.
You often have a roundtable discussion at the end of a training day, but that's where the real roundtable happens.
Yeah.
Because you're afraid to ask the question on the training.
Yeah,
yep.
That's for sure.
So for those that haven't listened to the previous episodes we've done with Calgary, we recorded and released an episode November 21st, November 28th, episode 113 and 114. We had a chance to talk to Kyle and Tanya and the whole team. Tanya's now retired, but the whole team at Calgary, and really interesting what you guys are doing, how you guys are implementing technology to make the arrest rate go up and keep the citizens safe in your area. I realized at this point in the conversation, I did Jack Schonely a disservice. I did not introduce Jack.
Who?
How you doing, sir?
Who? Hi, John. I was hiding here. How was that? Was that all right, Kyle?
There you go.
I like it. I like it.
All righty.
Yeah.
All righty.
I don't even realize how much I say it until I'm around America. So.
Always an honor to have you, Jack, with us, and thanks for co-hosting this conversation. You know the value and importance of training and these kinds of conversations. So thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm happy to be here today with these four gentlemen from Canada. This is great. This is really good that you put this together for a lot of reasons. So just happy to be here.
Yeah, anytime we have a conversation with more than four folks, it becomes like herding cats. So we'll see where we end up. But Wade, Sergeant Wade, can you introduce yourself and let us know where you're working and what your current role is?
Yeah, certainly. I'm Chief Pilot, Saskatoon Police Service Air Support Unit, and I'm, I guess, a little over 6,000 hour, 25-year police member. And so I started in the police aviation thing about 2011 after I got my private pilot's license on my uncle's little Piper Cherokee 140. Tooting around and just like Kyle's story, my uncle changed my life. It changed what was becoming a pretty challenging policing career, and made it fun again, made it passionate again. And so, since 2011, that's where my life has taken me. And And we had a unit for a number of years, but it was slowly kind of dying at that time. And so I guess new life and people make your unit, right? And so new life came and we kind of reinvented it. We reinvented it in such a way, and we went to the APSA training. A lot of it was, we listened to the training, not from the platform perspective, because we fly fixed wing here, but we look at what was trying to be accomplished, and we found ways to accomplish it with a fixed wing aircraft. And it took some years, and it took some training, and it took some coordination. But over the years, and over the last 6,000 hours, we've figured out a really good way of doing that and leveraging the benefits of our platform while trying as best as we can to shed ourselves the negatives of not flying a helicopter. I often say we get 90% there, and so if we're not flying the helicopter rescue mission out of a canyon with a hoist or Bambi bucket fire training, then, we're 100% there. That's kind of my background in history. And of course, we service, up until recently, a province that's about 50% larger than the state of California with one Cessna 182.
Wow.
And so it can be a busy job. That's why the fuel and the hours aloft, 8.5 hours on our 182 is a big deal, dropping down for fuel all the time and all that sort of stuff. If we didn't have that's made a big deal. And so we've found a lot of success with that type of platform. So happy to share.
Yeah, looking at a little bit of the stats, that I was sent about your guys' program, it's really impressive. Since 2013, I read that you guys have a 300% increase in arrests. And I'm assuming that's attributed a lot to the aviation program that you've built.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you talk about how that's been effective and help you accomplish that 300% increase?
Well, Kyle's talking about technology. So we didn't have a map system before 2013. We had a FLIR 8500. And as we started to evolve our technology and evolve our training and get better people, I mean, it's a bit of a process. I looked at it almost holistically as if we could create a good outcome on a call, then people found more interest in air support. And that attracted better people to apply for the unit. And as soon as we got better people, a little bit better technology, and apply that to the end outcome, the system would rotate again. And so better people, better technology, better and more outcomes. Start selling that. Better people, better tech, better outcomes. And so that's what's ended up happening. We've just kind of leveraged our people, we've leveraged the technology, and we've leveraged training and communication. And it's remarkable with, the chat groups with surrounding agencies. And, we'll be listening to the radio. It'll hit the chat group that there's a stolen car coming in from, 200 kilometers away before we ever hear about it on the radio or get a request. And we get airborne and we'll have eyes on it before anything's ever said on the radio. And so It's communication, it's people, it's that sort of stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I love about the fixed wing platform is your altitudes you're flying at allows you to have these angles a lot of times that you don't have in a helicopter. Traditionally, you're flying at an altitude that gives you a field of view that is miles beyond what you have in a helicopter. So you talk about that, and then you talk about the stealth platform. A lot of times you're orbiting over a city and over a call, and the bad guys have no idea that you're even there, which is great.
Yeah.
So there's some definite benefits that go with the fixed wing platforms. And I love that you guys have had so much success, operating in that environment. That's cool.
I just got to pump his brakes quick. It's funny, you look at what Saskatoon has done. So there's 380,000 people, like a smaller city in Saskatoon. Does that sound about right, Wade?
We've got about 350, 400,000 with the bedroom communities around Saskatoon. Yep.
So you look at that, and like coming from a helicopter agency where we have like 1.3, 1.4, probably pushing 1.5 million people around the Calgary area. When I get other cities and like we're talking, I look at Wade's model and what he's done. Regina has already copied it. And for other cities that we have around the country, it's a better option in the sense, not that there's things the helicopter could do for you, even on a patrol standpoint, that a fixed wing can't. But these smaller agencies would never afford to fly it, hardly ever. And Saskatoon is flying all the time. For those size agencies with those budgets, it is a model that the Wade and Saskatoon has proven that we're starting to see push out across the country, which is just outstanding. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, our goal is to keep the boys and girls on the ground safe, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing that from a helicopter, a drone, or a fixed wing airplane.
That's right.
It does that, at the end of the day. So we're accomplishing our goal regardless of the platform.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you watch the videos of a suspect being captured, and you don't know what the platform is. I mean, you can't tell the difference. It could be a helicopter, it could be a drone, it could be a fixed wing. And the bottom line is there's a guy being put in handcuffs, so it doesn't matter what the platform is.
And that's one of the unique things about this conversation is everybody is represented in this. We have helicopters, drones, and fixed wing operations present here. That's really cool. We haven't had a conversation like that before.
Yeah.
Going back to something you brought up about the recipe for success that you talked about, we've had quite a few conversations lately with people that talk about that recipe, and it does seem to be the common thread with agencies that are successful is kind of the snowball effect. You talked about the technology and how that allows you to increase the product that you're producing. You're arresting 300% more people, as of 2013, which attracts more people. And then the admin likes it. They throw more money at it because of that. That brings more technology, and it's just this ever growing process. And it's so effective. So really cool that you guys have done that.
Nashville comes to mind, huh, John?
Yeah.
Nashville Metro, they were talked about how the technology has changed the game for them completely to their customers. The officers on the ground know when the aircraft is overhead with the better camera system. They know just from what's being done and what's being said and how they're doing their job and the altitude they're working at. That was a fascinating conversation with them about how even the ground folks have figured it out, that technology is key. And yesterday we talked to Steve Ferris from Seminole County, very similar to what Wade was just saying about personnel, technology, and it all rolls into one. And next thing you know, you're getting budgeted for things that you didn't think you'd ever get because you're performing and you're giving results.
Right. Yeah. Wade, I saw you had something you wanted to touch on.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completions Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs, including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Well, I was just going to say, the one thing that goes along with that, I guess, is the communication piece. So I kind of, we treated it like a charity, right? So we looked for those charity stories, like the kid that gets picked up by a medical ambulance and taken to the hospital. They're the VIP, and they tell the story. And so that's what we did. But we told that story on Twitter. And when we do Twitter posts, I kind of, when I would formulate a post, I would do it in such a way that I was talking to our chief of police or our city councilor. And
perfect.
And really, if that got traction and, it got viral, so to speak, I didn't care as long as that one city councilor saw it. And I knew that started the greasing the wheels for that process to happen. And I knew it worked because when we went to the, say board of police commissioners and the city council to buy a new machine, it took a week and it was 100% vote. So, that helps big time, the communication piece.
That's great.
Yeah. The social media piece of the puzzle is really important. I think agencies are starting to catch wind of that and understand the value and power that social media has. But when it comes to, like you're saying, the political power that wields, these politicians catch word of those things and see where their money that they're allocating to these programs go. That's huge. Same thing for the citizens. It's a really efficient way for the citizens of the places you serve to see where their tax money is going.
That's right.
And they like to see that, whereas, when you don't have that, the helicopter's overhead making noise and it annoys people and they don't know what we're doing. But then when you have a social media program that's effective and, positively promotes the things you're doing, they go, I just saw them post about catching a stolen vehicle. They're probably doing the same thing. I think it kind of, it normalizes what we're doing and also allows them to identify the task at hand and not just, wonder why they're just making noise,
Yep.
Love that. That's great. Chris, we're talking about technology, and that's where you're sitting, with what you're doing. Can you introduce yourself, what your role is, and talk about how you guys are using that technology?
Right. Yeah. So I'm still currently a tactical flight officer. I'm the lead training officer for the TFOs. But I got kind of bored and I like to stress myself out. So I took on the role of doing the RPAS side off the side of my desk. RPAS is essentially, it's remotely piloted aircraft. I know in south of the border, they call them UAVs or drones. We call them RPAS in Canada. But I train all the TFOs, train all the RPAS pilots for York Regional Police, which is just a small, not small, it's quite a large region north of Toronto. And then prior to that, I was in uniform for 4 years as well. So over the past few years, we've grown our sort of program from one helicopter to we have about 17 RPAS now and about 50 RPAS pilots and about 7 TFOs as well. So technology, innovation is key, right? To keep up with technology in what we do and public safety and supporting the boys and girls on the ground and the community and the public as well, keeping everybody safe. So my whole thing started back when I was a child. I just want to get that out there first. When watching Chips on TV back when I was 6, 7 years old, that's where I said, this is what I want to do. Public safety aviation was key, right? This is something I was really interested in, and I just wanted to really get into that stuff. So,
not a motorcycle, Chris? You didn't end up on a motorcycle?
I did. I had the toy motorcycle at the time, but I didn't want to actually get into the motor cop sort of.
Okay, so you're mentally stable. Now we got that straight.
It was being above everything and just watching it all from the air, right? That's where it all started.
You waited for every fifth episode when the helicopter showed up,
and pretty much that's what it was. That was the best episode of the week, right? So. Wow, my father was a police officer as well, so he did, small police force. They did a lot of things back then. Like he was a canine handler, he was the Marine guy, he was the dive team. He pretty much did everything in the small agency. So I saw that, hey, this looks fun. This is something I really want to do. Kind of pushed me away from it a little bit and tried to get me to venture down some other paths. And then I started my flying career when I was 15. So I got my fixed wing license and started that when I was 15 years old. And by the time I graduated high school, I became a fixed wing pilot. So technology wise, it's sort of aviation wise. And then I got into the military after that as an avionics specialist. So that's where the technology stuff really started to hit it for me. When I came out of the military after about 9 years serving there, I came into policing and I thought, this is where I want to be. I want to be in public safety aviation still and becoming the TFO and becoming the UAV coordinator and trainer for our organization. It was pretty much a simple thing for me to just slide into because of all my background and expertise in aviation. So that really helped me out through that. But yeah, I like harnessing that technology. And it's important that we understand the biggest challenge we're faced is when you're introducing a UAV in an organization where there's already a traditional aviation program. There is that pushback from the traditional side of the house, right? And there's a little bit of infighting, and people are just kind of like, no, it's going to take my job away. But it's quite clear, like these platforms, they just simply complement each other.
Absolutely.
And all of them have their limitations. All of them have their capabilities. And it's so important that the teams work together. And when we started our PAS program, we brought it right in-house underneath of the aviation unit right away so that we were talking the same. We were doing everything the same. Essentially, a TFO is the same as an RPAS pilot. It's just the RPAS pilot standing in the cold and the TFO's in a warm helicopter, right? So that's about the only difference. But the tactics and techniques are all the same, really, when you look at it. So
that's right.
Like training wise, we looked at all that stuff. And so for me to go from the TFO lead trainer to training all the RPAS pilots, it was quite a simple transition because it's all the same stuff. They're so good to work together, and we've had a lot of great success with multiple platforms on a situation, whether it be a search and rescue, where the helicopter's got a larger search area. The RPAS can focus more on the smaller search areas and the tighter areas to get into and check shorelines and such. And then a suspect apprehension. When you have 2 or 3 suspects, I mean, the RPAS can keep an eye on one, while the helicopter goes out and looks for the other ones, right? So until you get your teams on the ground in there. So, I mean, they really complement each other out there. And that's kind of like the biggest thing is nobody's taking anybody's job with these things.
Right.
And
Yep.
for now,
That's
I guess at least for another decade or so, I don't think there's going to be an RPAS out there that can replace traditional aircraft and what they can do. And if an agency is so fortunate to have all 3 platforms, whether it's fixed wing, rotary, and RPAS, I mean, you've got everything covered.
Yep.
So that's the key.
Well stated, Chris.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're the lead TFO trainer, and now you're training the drone operators. Sorry that I call them drone operators. I don't know if that's offensive or not. But
No, we throw all the terms around. I probably said all 3 in my little splurb there, so it doesn't matter.
we've talked about this at length quite a bit, and how exactly what you said is true. Operating the drone is the same thing the TFO is doing. You talk about the communication side of the house. One of the hardest things to do as a TFO is to see and interpret what you're seeing out that window and be able to articulately and efficiently put that information out in a way that's not tying up too much radio time, but also letting the people on the ground or surrounding you know what you're looking at and how to direct people and all those little skills that you learn as a TFO. Why should we not then teach those lessons and skills that we've learned over the years in a helicopter to the folks that are operating the UAVs? I only think that makes all the sense in the world. Jack, I know through your training and your travels, you've seen a lot of that.
Yeah. And Chris just repeated what I say all the time, that it can't replace, it's not going to replace anything, but it enhances it dramatically. And if you work together, it really affects everything that you do in law enforcement aviation, whether it's looking for a missing child or looking for a bad guy. It doesn't matter. Are there limitations to the UAS programs? Of course there are, just like there's limitations to a helicopter or fixed wing program. It's all the same. And I love the way Chris described it, that the TFO it doesn't matter whether you're operating a drone or operating out of a fixed wing or rotorcraft. It's the same job, the same verbiage, the same technology, flares, you're searching, you're communicating, you're coordinating, all that stuff. So the fact that you're under the UAS program is under air support like that's how it should be. It shouldn't be separate. Otherwise, you're robbing those operators, the drone operators, the experience and the knowledge from these people that have been there and done that. Many agencies are trying to reinvent the wheel with their drone program when they have a TFO right there at a hangar that's the expert. So that's really refreshing, Chris, to hear that you're both. You're doing both, and you're educating these folks that aren't up in an aircraft. They're operating an aircraft on the ground. That's great stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's a huge advantage to even have them working out of the same building.
Yeah.
And just having that relationship with the traditional pilots and the rotary and the sort of the RPAS pilots is just talking the talk and able to work together and know what all of our TFOs are trained as RPAS operators. We have a lot more RPAS operators, but to put the RPAS operator up in the helicopters, to show them and they have that relationship and show them the capabilities and the limitations of all these aircraft so that they can work better together.
Yeah. And the debriefing, I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I'll bet in your hangar, the debriefing that goes on between air crews and UAS people benefits both. I mean, it benefits both of them. And hey, this is what I just had. And you talk about it, and some young, brand new drone operator listens to that story and goes, wow, that could be me, not up in a helicopter, but operating this UAS system. I mean, that could be me talking a canine team into a suspect, and they learn in the hangar without having experienced it, just from the debriefs. That's a perfect situation.
Chris, can you talk about how your agency selects the drone operators, and then also how they select TFOs, and whether or not those feed each other, and how that kind of works? I think a lot of agencies have an interest to bring those operations under one roof and have an interest in kind of making a career progression to where you can operate from one to the other? What does that look like for you guys?
Well, we have a pretty small TFO pool, only 7 full-time members. When we do our selection, we do have a couple of alternate TFOs. That's usually where you start out. We bring the alternates into the program where they're sort of a part-time. We train them on our paths, and that's how it all starts for them. And then once they come in full-time, whether there's a spot that opens up for them, they move in full-time. But for the RPAS, there's so many other areas in our organization. We just have like 50 RPAS pilots through investigative, marine, or other support areas, right? So they don't necessarily get a chance to come in as a TFO, but they're still working in their support fields or the investigative fields where they utilize the RPAS from their units. But yeah, selection-wise, I mean, TFO selection, that goes through pretty a robust selection. Like you got to do the flight fitness testing and stuff like that for them, whereas you might not need to do that for an RPAS operator because you don't really need to worry about the flight sickness or being able to operate in an aircraft, like the motion sickness stuff. So the RPAS selection is a little bit, it's a little bit easier. And it's essentially, we're just looking for people that have the right head on their shoulders and understand. One of the biggest things with policing is it's hard to take that police hat off and put the aviation hat on sometimes. And we're looking for the people that can put that aviation hat on strictly for safety reasons and put the police hat to the side while they're operating these aircraft. So that's kind of key when we're selecting the individuals for these different areas.
Good job explaining that. Kyle brought something up that kind of highlights some of what you said. You talked about how when you initially were exposed to it, Kyle, you thought it was easy, right? Or you thought it would be easy. And then you actually dig into it, like you're talking about, Chris, like there's a lot that goes into being a successful TFO, a lot more than I ever thought, and just there's a lot to consider, and the selection processes identify a lot of that.
I often think about like there's like an X factor there that makes a good TFO. And we talk about what makes that X factor, and we see it in our canine guys too. And I actually heard a canine guy say it really well. I think some of the best canine guys are a little bit like their dogs that just want to get at the bad guys so bad. And I think there's something true to that, right? Like, how do you recruit that, right? We look at their capability and all that stuff, but how do we find that person that wants to catch a bad guy like they want to hit a cocaine? To me, that's that X factor. It should, and I don't know how you find that, though. It is my answer to that, other than interviewing and trying to find the people doing a good job on the street, I guess.
Well, Curtis, you've been patiently waiting for us to address you. Thank you for joining us. Can you introduce yourself and let us know where you work and what your current assignment is?
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
Corporal Curtis Brassington. I'm with the RCMP. I'll have 22 years of service this month. I joined a little later in life. I was in my mid-30s when I joined, and listening to all you guys, it sounds like I am the only person here who literally can't fly to save my life. I'm not a pilot, never have been. Honestly, no real desire to do that. When I did my initial flight testing during the TFO selection, I've been with the TFO. I was the first TFO hired for the Air One program here in Vancouver for the RCMP, and that was back in 2006. So when I did that TFO selection process, first time I'd ever been in a helicopter, and it just clicked. I guess I've loved doing it. Been doing it ever since. I've been the TFO supervisor because I was the first guy, building the program for the last 15 years, supervising 2 or 3. I'm a corporal, supervising 2 or 3 constables. We've grown from a single EC-120 here in Lower Mainland. Sorry, when I say Lower Mainland, I mean Greater Vancouver. To now we have 2 EC-120s and an H-145. But the RCMP is as I'm sure all the Canadians on this panel will tell you, is we do a bit of everything. We do federal policing, we do provincial policing, we do city policing, we do small town policing, detachments in size from like 1,000 members down to the 2 and 3 members up in the Arctic and the remote communities. We have 3 helicopters here at our base in Langley, which serve the greater Vancouver area. But we also have helicopters in Comox, Kelowna, and Prince George in terms of British Columbia. We have one in Edmonton, Alberta. It's based in Edmonton, and it serves the province of Alberta, which, like Wade was talking about, our provinces up here are huge. Alberta's roughly, almost double the size of California, and you got one helicopter dealing with that area. We have other helicopters in Montreal and in Moncton. Moncton is in the Maritimes, just north of Maine, Vermont, and like I say, in Montreal as well. So it's a big range. We do a lot of different jobs depending on the communities we're serving, and I've been lucky enough going to what you were mentioning in terms of my current role. I've now seconded to Air Services Branch, which is based in Ottawa, which is where the RCP headquarters are, and been asked to train TFOs across the country to basically do the job that I've been doing here for 18 years. As was mentioned earlier, it was sort of a scattershot's maybe not the right word, but an impromptu approach. Most of the helicopters do a lot of work in the remote areas. They support radio techs, building radio towers to keep communications going in a lot of these bigger provinces, and not necessarily a lot of TFO work, a lot of criminal interdiction. Helicopters were used, much like they're used in the commercial world, to get you to places where you can't fly to in a fixed wing or can't drive to. But as the demand has increased for criminal interdiction in these remote areas, well, guess what? You can't just have an amazing pilot. You also need to have a competent TFO over there because of the technology and the safety, managing pursuits or other sort of criminal events. So, I've spent the last several months going around the country teaching a program that I developed following a tragic incident in 2014 where 3 of our members were killed in Moncton. They had an aircraft based in Moncton. It was airborne 15 minutes after the shooting started. Outstanding pilot and a junior member who had never been in the aircraft before, dealing with that kind of incident. Had you had a competent TFO, I don't know if it would have changed the outcome. By the time it got up, the shootings there was already 3 members who'd been shot. It might have hastened the arrest of the suspect. Suspect was arrested about 30 hours after the first shots. Citizen called in, said, "Hey, this whole neighborhood area was on lockdown. I just saw something suspicious in my backyard." Members came and found the suspect in a shed on the property. But could we have found him earlier? I don't know. We can go crazy trying to guess. But if he had been findable and you had a competent crew up there, you would have dramatically increased your chances.
Right.
So,
do you know how far from where he killed those RCMP members to that shed? How the distance?
Yeah, I was out teaching a course in Moncton in March, and I arrived a day or two early, and I drove up to that neighborhood and drove around to where every member was. Each house, each alley, each location, and to where the suspect was located. It was roughly a kilometer away, which for the American audience is about half a mile. A little over half a mile away, 5-6 blocks from where it all started. Looking in the area, some of it was pretty heavily treed, so that would have been tough. But a lot of it was open. You're not talking, it's a residential area, mostly 2-story buildings. I was there in March, so not a lot of leaves in the trees, but imagining what it would have been like in early June. We're just coming up to the anniversary, and thinking, okay, how would I have dealt with this call? Where would I have put the perimeter points? How would I have tried to manage? There were some really nice barriers. There's a 6-lane freeway on one side, which would have been outstanding to hold that south perimeter. So thinking about, okay, the whole reason I was asked to develop this course was to deal with incidents like this. So if I were there on that day, how would I have dealt with it?
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really shows you, because Moncton is a pretty little town. I've been through there, and it's the last place that you would say, oh, this is where 3 law enforcement officers are going to get murdered. You would never say that. You would never say that. And but yet it happened. And that happens all over North America regularly in small communities, where you don't expect things to happen, but they do. And then people go, wow, I wish we had this tool or that tool. So it's a great example that you can use to sell your program and say, look, this happened in Moncton. That means it could happen anywhere in Canada, anywhere, from the largest cities to the smallest towns. And air support, whatever form it is, whatever airframe it is, can dramatically change the outcome of the success of the outcome of incidents like that. So it's tragic. It's terrible. It's a terrible mark in RCMP history, but it's reality. And I'm glad that incident is being brought forward in what you're doing, Curtis, to try and expand the program. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad fact that tragedy usually drives the changes we need to see.
Always.
But the nice thing is like say it was recognized as being dealt with, and going to Chris and Wade's point, I've been teaching now this course on in both fixed wing and rotary wing, because as Wade and Chris were saying, the tactics are the same. Doesn't matter the aircraft. We even, in this latest course I did in London, which is just east of Detroit, teaching TFO tactics without cameras in a low wing Pilatus aircraft. Just because your camera's not working, your mapping system's not working, you got a low wing aircraft, how are we going to go out? We just had a couple members shot. How are we going to deal with it? Maybe, Maps.me or Google Maps or something on your phone, or paper maps, and then out the window with the pilot having to dip the wing so you can keep track of that target. Yeah. But it can be done.
Sure.
And while the technology is amazing, it really is about the people on board, the pilots and the TFOs.
That's so important.
In the words of somebody by the name of Jack Schonely, that when the time to perform arrives, the time to prepare is gone. And
that's true.
And I've been sitting on that comment. And so well done, Curtis, well done because I know you love TFOing and I know you love doing the job, but well done for traveling, leaving your family, being across the country and teaching people all over the country to do this job. Well done.
I agree with Wade. We look at that Moncton call as a bit of a case study too when we're teaching our TFOs now. And like you said, they weren't there, but if they've been in the air when that had started, like if you listen to the audio on it, I'm sure you have more to add this on this, Curtis, but it's chaos. Like Jack, you've talked about it as well in the previous episodes. When you got that officer down, guys are driving up to this guy with a gun. They're not perimeter containment. I think when we talk about active shooters, but there is a difference between an active shooter trying to shoot the public and an active shooter trying to shoot us. To me, those are different tactics, even though they're similar. And we haven't really got to the point where we identify a difference. And at some point we realize, oh, no, this guy wants to get us. I think that's where that air support management side, I say to people all the time, you can live without air support 99% of the time is the realistic answer. So how do you tell people with the budget money that this is invaluable? Well, that 1% of the time, it maybe saves 3 RCMP members or 3 officers' lives. Because if you can help coordinate those units and set the tone on that call, get everyone in the right mindset, calm down, doing perimeter containment, setting up high-risk tracks, we can walk those guys in to take that guy out, and he won't even see it coming.
Jack, going back to you, one of the things I like about your class is kind of what Curtis was saying. There's no technology required for what you're teaching. The principles of what you're talking about are just that, don't require technology. Can you talk about how that plays into what Curtis was saying?
Oh yeah, Curtis said it beautifully. He described it about the low wing Pilatus. How okay, you don't have a gimbal, you don't have a moving map, you've got a low wing Pilatus. How are you going to deal with this? Well, there you go. What matters now is what you say, what you do tactically, how you place people, how you paint pictures of what's going on to describe best approaches for responding officers, all that stuff. You don't need technology to do any of that. You just need to be tactical, and you need to have some training and experience to do that. And so I thought that was a perfect description of why it's important to get these TFOs into that program. And it's not all about technology. Does technology help you? Of course it does. It enhances it dramatically. I mean, having that FLIR is amazing to have that. But what if it isn't working? What if that gimbal's not on that aircraft that day? You still have to be able to perform and get the job done. And can you do it? Yes, you can, with the right training and knowledge and some people coaching you. Sure, you can. People did it. I think back to my first day in a helicopter. It was a map book in my hands, a night sun, in a Bell Jet Ranger. That's it. I mean, and we caught bad guys left and right because that's all we had, and we had to learn to do it that way. And then you had people that would train you and explain things to you and say, "No, Jack, that was really dumb what you said there. You should have said this. I would have gone here. I would have placed the first unit here instead of there." Whatever it is, there was no technology to really talk about. Oh, gyro stabilized binoculars. Oh, wow. That, I mean, it's nothing compared to today's world. So it's a good conversation, and it's important that everybody that is out there in an air crew, no matter what your airframe is, knows that it's you that matters. It's you, the person, that matters, not what kind of camera you have, not what kind of airframe you're on. None of that's all secondary. What's first is what Curtis brought up, that it's the people, and they got to get trained, and then the rest just happens.
I keep going back to what Manny Dickerson said from LAPD. He's our chief TFO. He talks about being one radio call away from that officer down scenario. We talk about the importance of working through these calls in advance, whether it's table talk or just conversation about what you're going to do. But think about these scenarios in advance. So when the moment comes, you're not then scrambling to try to figure out how to coordinate, how to talk, how to do all these things you got to do. So, take Jack's class, take Curtis's class, reach out to folks that have been in these scenarios and ask what worked, what didn't. I think those are huge. On the training side of things, Curtis, can you talk about how this has molded your program and how you're now training your folks to respond to these types of incidents?
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
I've spent most of the past 3 months doing these training courses, and I had leave this weekend to do another 2-week TFO training course. And I think I've learned as much as the candidates, because I've been very comfortable working in Greater Vancouver, knowing what I know and everything else. So going out I've done courses now in Moncton, Regina, just near Wade's area, and in London, Ontario, and adapting the tactics for each place. But it really boils down to, and I tell the guys, finding, following, and communicating. That's the 3 bases of the job. You've got to find your target. So whether it's a moving target and you don't know where he is, and so you're hunting in an area, okay, he was last seen in this area. Where could he get to in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever it is? To, hey, we got a static target. He's at a certain place and you're in a new town. You've never worked there. So figuring that out real fast, getting your pilot there. And then, like I say, finding them, they go mobile, following them. But the communication with the pilot and the guys on the ground is probably the hardest thing to explain to people, because you have to sometimes, especially in the fixed wing, they're sitting in the back of this fixed wing. They've got their little TFO station there. They're living on their map and the camera, pretty much not looking out the window. They have to imagine what the pilot can see out the window so he can set the orbits up so we can do our job effectively. And you have to think about what the guys on the ground, especially when you're in a narrow focus, if you've got a suspect out on foot, really narrow focus on buddy walking down the street, while also using maybe some of your other displays, which have a wider field of view. These new cameras that have both a narrow and wide are amazing with different feeds. But yeah, you got to not think for, but anticipate what the guys on the ground need, what your pilot needs to get this job done.
Yeah, that's all huge. There's so much to consider there, and again, going back to training, that's why as a newer TFO, even a seasoned TFO, all these little skills that you're learning and improving on come into play in these scenarios. You're taking all these little micro skills that you developed and employing them in these scenarios when people's lives depend on it. It's so important to take advantage of those times you have to work on your camera skills, on your communication skills, and all the different things and elements that go into that.
There's not an air crew on the planet that comes to work one morning and says, "Yep, today's the day I'm going to be over the big one." Nobody comes in. You get thrown into it. At high velocity, and all of a sudden, people are looking at you to be the one or two people that are coordinating something that's just beyond your imagination in some cases. And I think, Chris, I'm curious from your perspective, when you're training your UAV people, do they fully understand that they will even more likely be over that more quickly, and where they're going to have a huge role in something big like this as an operator out in the field? Have you trained them where they're really prepared for that?
I don't know. I would hope so. I hope that I prepare them for that. But most of them, when they initially come in, I don't think they don't understand that. Once we start doing the debriefs with our videos from the rotary side of the house, and they actually see some of the stuff that we get into, then they start to sort of learn and realize, wow,
so you're doing it.
This could happen. Yeah. So I do hope we're preparing them for that. We'll wait and see, really. But I don't think we're really there yet. I mean, we did have a UAV incident there the other couple of years ago where it was right in the area where the incident happened, and it was the first on scene and saw the two suspects running through the field. So fortunately, that our pass operator was a TFO. So he was able to communicate effectively and guide the helicopter into the scene. So, we have had that for sure happen, and he was prepared for that. But again, that member was already a TFO. So for the RPAS pilots coming in, the other 40 or 50, that's something that I hope we prepare them for.
One common thing that we keep coming across in this conversation is communication. And Jack, I'm going to go to you for a second, because I know at LAPD, when there's a major incident, you've got a lot of units involved and there's a lot of radio traffic. Yeah. People are trying to put information out that's important, that's not important, a full spectrum of that. How did you as a TFO handle those situations where you're trying to demand the air, and what tips do you have for people that are trying to do the same thing?
It's a great question. It's always on big incidents, especially officer downs or something, really violent and fluid. It's difficult. It's difficult because there is so much radio traffic. Everybody has something to say. And it takes a strong, well-trained tactical flight officer to come in and say, all right, everybody hold the air. And what do we have? Where did you last see this suspect? You have to take charge and calmly, professionally, but assertively take charge and say, this is the primary thing I need right now. I'm here to help you. What I need is, where was this guy last seen? What direction was he going? What does he look like? And how long ago did that happen? Everything else is mildly interesting at that point. And if they say, well, he's in this house, and you go, well, are you positive? You do the what ifs for them, and you just try and slow things down a notch. It's hard. And sometimes I've failed at that. I know I have, where you just couldn't get through the nonsense, and you just go, God, I wish they'd shut up. You're thinking that, but you can't say that. You just can't yell on the radio, everybody shut up. You want to, but you have to find a way. You have to find a way to get in there and say, hey, I'm here to help you. And what I need right now is this. And then all of a sudden, one person is talking to you instead of four. And you go, I'm getting somewhere. Yeah, because it is chaos. It is. It's unavoidable. Why? Because there's emotions involved. There's adrenaline involved, especially when you know it's a fellow officer, that might be down or that you already know that they're dead, because of radio traffic. It's an emotional thing, and that affects everybody. So what I was taught, by the way, and what I have shared over the years is that you need to be that calming force. You need to be the calm voice on the radio and slow things down. However you can do it, you find a way to slow things down a couple notches so that everybody can take a breath and go, okay, what do we have? Okay, we have the officer was shot here. Where was the guy last seen? He was last seen right there. And you get that basic stuff, and then you start placing people, or you start giving advice, or saying, hey, are you folks aware that behind that house is this? You start doing your job. What you would do on an everyday call, you just start doing it, even though it isn't the everyday call. But the best tip I can give is be the calming voice. Even if you're excited inside, and you are, you can't, 1,000 feet doesn't change emotions on calls like this. I mean, John, you mentioned Manny Dickerson. Let's talk about Deb, his wife. She talked about this on her podcast, on her episode, where she was preparing for that day her whole time, and that people were being very hard on her about her communication skills. And they kept saying, Deb, the reason I'm being hard on you is because someday you're responding to a big call. And sure enough, she got one. And she knew the officer. Talk about emotions on a 10,000 officer department. She knows the officer. Unbelievable. And she did a phenomenal job over that. Phenomenal job. Why? Because she was prepared for it. She'd been trained and told, you better be ready for this, because if you're going to be in an air support unit, you're going to be involved in this. Absolutely, positively, you're going to be involved in this at some point in time. And she took that to heart. She took her training seriously. And sure enough, one day there she is. And she was humble about it, but I know what happened. And I'm telling you, she was phenomenal. But that's because she had conversations like we're having right now. That's a fact. It's good to prepare, even in Moncton, right? I mean, it takes us back to that. You got to be prepared no matter where you work. People say, well, I mean, I've heard this 1,000 times. I work in a really safe area. Our city's never had an officer down. And then suddenly that city experiences their first officer kill in line of duty. Well, how about that? I'm not a fortune teller. I'm just telling you that, you got to be prepared.
That's what I'm really excited about, because in Canada, one of the challenges from all the people that I talk to is typically a tactical flight officer in a lot of agencies, they get timed out. So they'll spend their 5 years in the unit, and then we punt them out because I don't know why. But so year one, they learn the technology and learn how to find a bad guy. Year two, they start to get good at it, and then they get really good and comfortable at finding and following a bad guy. And it's not until year 4.5 that they get really good at communicating and actually taking control of the situation, walking guys in so they're safe, and managing. So I find, we teach them how to run the camera and the map system and be safe around the aircraft, and find a guy and then follow them. They do really good at that.
Yeah.
But then for 1 year of their TFO life, they're really valuable at what they were born to do. And then we kick them out. And so I look at the timeline of when we last got together in Canada in person to have these sidebars and the in-person training, and then spend the next 6 hours in the evening or whatever with the same people and asking those questions once you're a little bit more comfortable with a guy. How did you do that? How did you handle that? And then that's how they become good. And it's been so long since we got together in person. That's why I'm really excited about Calgary.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk to Curtis and buy him a beer, and Chris and Kyle, and understand, those little tidbits that you're training your people across the country to do that part of the job.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I look at how we fly, we fly about 1,200 hours a year, and we're a part-time unit. The TFO job is such a perishable skill set. If you take holidays for 2 or 3 weeks and come back, all my guys say, geez, I wonder if I can even run this stuff again. And they do. It's like riding a bike, but but it's always their first chase or their first, foot pursuit. They feel fumbled in communicating it, and that's only after a couple of weeks. So I'm curious to see what, Kyle and Chris and Curtis are doing. If you're training people that might not be in the airframe for a month or might not deploy or whatever, how do you train that part of the job, especially when you're going to have to do it every couple of years with new people? So I'm excited about that because that's one of our challenges here.
Let me, before Kyle, I know you want to jump in real quick to that, Wade. One thing, I have a pet peeve about term limits on, I love term limits on politicians. I hate term limits on cops because, no matter what, whether it's a canine handler, a TFO, a SWAT person, a motor cop, whatever it is, a motor cop like Chris wanted to do, no matter what that specialty is, I think it's true what Wade just said. It's about 4.5 years and you're like, yeah, baby, I'm on top of my game. And 6 months later, you're booted back to patrol. It's like, are you insane? Who makes these rules, And it's all about, well, we want to be fair and we want to let people fairness is mildly interesting to me at that point. I want the most competent person, the most experienced person to be over that critical incident. And so the term limits are just silly. And I'll just add to that one quick thing is that the technology part of it, what Wade just described, we teach them how to use the technology. Well, and Wade, chime in on this. You can teach a 12-year-old to use that technology. They're pretty good at that stuff.
Yeah.
What they don't know how to do is all the other stuff that you described over the next 4 years. And that's where the value is. The technology, when you look at it, it's the easy part. It's the easy part. Now telling those officers on the ground what to do with what you found with that technology, that's the hard part. And that takes experience.
And here's the best way to describe that is try and ask your 12-year-old what he wants for supper while he's playing a video game.
Yes, perfect.
They can't communicate. They're so dialed into what they're looking at and controlling the controller. And I can't say I want a hamburger versus a hot dog. They can't say it. They can't get it out.
I love that.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yes. Right. And so that's what we contend with. And so, I'll have one guy fly with one guy who's, super good at the technology. He's got the levels and gains, just beautiful. Yeah. He can read license plates in IR. You know what I mean? It's fantastic, but he can't talk. And then you fly the next night with the other guy who's just got the gift of gab and he's just wonderful, but he has a hard time getting it out of auto or a hard time getting, switching from this to that. And
Kyle, you've been patiently waiting, so I'm going to give you
Kyle.
I
cut you off, funny. Kyle.
No, it's all good. That's how these things go. We talked about it just not too long ago, where these things happen everywhere. They happen in these small communities. I just want to bring that back to how important what Curtis is doing. When I heard him in particular, because the RCMP, as far how they do things, like we said, they're not treating TFOs. They don't take that seriously. You can throw anyone in there, with the exception of where Curtis works in BC and the Lower Mainland. And their reputation for what they're doing there is top notch in the country, for sure. So the fact that they brought him in to do that is, but how do you manage those calls? And then hopefully you can bring that to them. Curtis, can we talk about Portapique a bit? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So we had another call with the RCMP out in Portapique, Nova Scotia. Like, this is a tiny little hamlet in the east coast of Canada. And we don't have a lot of mass shootings like you guys do, but we had the worst mass shooting in our country. And that was only 3-4 years ago, Curtis?
2021.
So we're not talking that long ago. He killed 27?
I believe there was 19 people killed, several more shot. And of course he ended up dying as well, but there was, he shot and killed 19 people, including a police officer. And he was dressed as a police officer while he was doing most of these killings. So that's a whole other unanticipated level of complexity there.
So you talk about those big calls. It doesn't get much bigger than that. And I always wondered, and I'm curious to get your take on this because I'm sure you've looked at it a bit too. If you had some air support on that call, because it went on for hours of this guy moving around in a like locked up police vehicle in a uniform, and he even killed one RCMP member who he drove up to them, and she probably thought he was just another cop. So I'm curious what your take would be, Curtis, when looking on that call, what air support maybe could have done for that, because I've always wondered that, because I don't know. I know the bits about the call, but I've never heard a lot of the deeper info on that one.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24-megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completions Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs, including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thank you for joining us for this enlightening two-part series of the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast. We hope our engaging discussion with this panel of Canadian public safety aviation experts has provided you with valuable insights into the critical roles they play and the skills necessary for success in this dynamic field. As we've explored, the emphasis on training and skill development for TFOs is paramount, especially as they tackle the complexities of their responsibilities in high-pressure situations. The integration of technology and collaboration across various aviation platforms is transforming law enforcement operations and enhancing overall effectiveness in public safety. The experiences shared by our guests on pressing issues such as situational awareness following the Portapique mass shootings, weather challenges, and the importance of survival kits remind us of the ever-evolving landscape of public safety aviation. We also appreciate the emphasis on continuous education and training, which is essential for adapting to new challenges and improving effectiveness and efficiency in our complex mission sets. As we conclude this episode, we encourage our listeners to implement the knowledge gained today in their own operations and to continue engaging with the community to foster growth and improvement within public safety aviation. Cheers.
Time to close up the hangar. Thanks for joining us on the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts.